He's also a chapter executive and the communications director of the ISCC Singapore chapter. And of course, our moderator today is Sujit Christie, President, ISC Squared Colombo chapter. We will, of course, share a small survey near the end of the session to get your feedback, to see what more we can offer you. So please do take a minute and fill it out. And before I hand over the session to Sujit to carry on the conversation, I would like to invite the president of the ISC Squared Singapore chapter, Garian Kong, to deliver the opening remarks. So over to you, Garian.
Thank you, Samanthi. I'm having some problem with the video. Please excuse me. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sujit. Thank you for the invitation. This is my great pleasure to deliver these opening remarks. Thanks to the invitation. And I'm very happy to witness this very successful collaboration between the Singapore chapter and the ISC Squared Colombo chapter, Sri Lanka. So it's very interesting when Neha, our board member and communication director, brought up this event. To my knowledge, I was very interested. And I sort of immediately know that this is a very good opportunity for the Singapore chapter to collaborate with somebody outside of Singapore, because usually Singapore chapter only collaborates with the association within Singapore itself. So this is a very good opportunity for the chapter itself to work with other chapters, fellow ISC Squared chapters in the region or across the world, especially so that I can see there are many established women panelists in this event from across the world, and I think that's a very good thing. And just to mention a few initiatives that's happening in Singapore itself to encourage more women in cyber. So the CSA, the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, has a national initiative called the SG Cyber Women initiative, and this initiative is to build the cybersecurity pipeline, and the agency plans to work with industry partners in Singapore to develop this initiative, and is targeted to leverage on the underrepresented talent pool, i.e. the women in Singapore, by encouraging more females from as young as pre-tertiary age. It means from a very young age, starting small and young, to join the cybersecurity profession. And under the initiative, CSA will coordinate and support the community's efforts from outreach to skills development to achieve the following objectives, which is to first engage women through education and community engagement, develop their professional skill sets through learning and training, as well as to advance their cybersecurity career through support and inspiration. So that is on the national level by our cybersecurity agency. From the Singapore chapter itself, I'm also pleased to announce that the Singapore chapter is also going to start a Women in Cyber Special Interest Group. And this is going to be led by our lady panelist representative in this event, Ms. Neha Malhotra, and with the support of our other women members in our executive council, as well as the subcommittee members. And I believe this special interest group will be a success as well in Singapore. And that brings me to mention how we can bring in more women other than such collaboration with the other ISC Squared chapters, how we can bring in more women in cybersecurity, not just in Singapore, but around the world. First, I think we need to start with education, which is what's mentioned and what's the aim in the CSA agency's goal. We need to start young, like grooming athletes in sports or in other activities. We need to groom the young from a very young age so that they have the interest in going into closer and closer into this industry. Encourage them to take up and specialize in STEM, encourage education in computer science. And of course, when they are in the polytechnic or higher institutes of education, encourage them to take up cybersecurity courses. When we also need to inspire this group of young ladies, inspire them through actions and knowledge by conducting talks like this, sharing knowledge with them, and talking to them in schools or in those institutions of higher learning before they join the workforce. And we should also encourage diversity in our HR practices, encourage inclusion in corporate culture, as well as develop mentorship programs like what the Singapore chapter has also developed since last year, a mentorship program to mentor the young or those new who have just entered the cybersecurity industry, showing them the path to success. And we should also provide role models as successful women in cyber, as role models to those young ladies, young students on how to be successful, similar like you. And finally, we need to also celebrate success like what we are doing this evening. Celebrating success for women in cybersecurity. And I hope all of us who are attending this seminar will find this event interesting like I do. And thank you again to Samanthi and Sujit.
Garion, thank you so much for your very encouraging words. I think it's a very important and significant day in our calendars that, as two chapters coming together, and I see, looking at the member participations, I think members and friends have joined us from across the globe, right? So that's very encouraging for us. So with that note, I'd just like to jump straight into the conversation, right? So first and foremost, I must tell you, I'm very, very fortunate and I feel very honored to be speaking to these trailblazing ladies, right? All of you have reached the pinnacle over a period of time, right? And there are significant achievements which you have in your, what would I say? I mean, lots of achievements which we can go on talking about, right? But these achievements wouldn't have happened by just sitting in an armchair, watching a movie or reading a book. There would have been lots of effort, lots of tears, which has resulted in a lot of joy. Right? So I'm just coming to Sharon, right? Starting with Sharon. Sharon, there are lots which I can talk about, right? And I've had the privilege of working with you as well, right? In different opportunities. You've been recognized as one of the top 100 women in Singapore in 2021. And also you've been also recognized as a top 30 woman in security in the ASEAN region. What did it take you to get there?
Well, it's a tough one, but thank you so much for the introduction, Sujit. Honestly, I feel very blessed and very fortunate. I think in the whole lead up time throughout my career, I've just been blessed with incredible mentors, having so many connections and people you can really talk to, because it can get hard to navigate yourself within cyber. It is hard to, pick up different skill sets, especially as you get into cyber, you realize how quickly things move. Something you realize or something you learn today may or may not be as relevant tomorrow. There's always something new coming on. And I guess really it's something we call the growth mindset, having that growth mindset and being willing to be humble and realizing that, yes, this is what else I need to work on right now and what else I need to continue to upskill myself and learn. And I think that's kind of that passion and that interest that really fuels it. Yeah.
Sharon, growth mindset, right? So looking at the mindset and the challenges which we have, I'm just going to ask Sunari, right? I mean, she's a classic example amongst the panelists here. She started her career as a management trainee in IT 20 years ago almost, right? And today, she has become the CISO of one of the leading banks in Sri Lanka. So how do you relate to the growth mindset and how did you get to this point, Sunari?
A very good morning, good evening. Am I audible, Sujit?
Yeah, you're audible, but there's an echo. Try again.
Is it better?
Yeah, better, yes.
All right, okay. So a very good morning, good evening to everyone. So as you said, Sujit, I joined Commercial Bank, my employer, almost 15 years ago, actually, as a management trainee. So to be honest, I did not actively seek a career in cybersecurity. And that's primarily because due to my ignorance of cybersecurity at the time. And of course, at the risk of revealing my age, I'm going to share that cybersecurity was not even part of the curriculum when I did my bachelor's in the early 2000s. So naturally, I had not even heard of the concept when I started my career. So when I started my career at Commercial Bank, then of course, but from the beginning, I knew that software coding is not the thing for me. So I joined the networks and comms division of Commercial Bank IT department as a management trainee. Then down the line, maybe about 1 year down the line, the IT management decided to start this, what they call IT security unit at the time. So thanks to some of my superiors who saw some potential in me, or maybe there were no other volunteers because it was a new area. So due to either of the reasons, I got assigned to this new unit and things could not have worked out any better for me. I mean, it was all very unknown. So when you are thrown into the unknown, you have to learn things from the scratch. So I had to learn things from the scratch. And when you do that, you have to do a lot of research. And while doing research, you actually realize, okay, so cybersecurity is something that actually matters and that it has an impact that actually extends beyond the digital world and into the physical world. And you could be actually solving real world problems. And that kind of got me hooked into, okay, so I could actually be making a positive impact on the business and on people. And you also realize, okay, you could be a hero sometimes, like when you stop someone from suffering harm or when you help thwart an attack. So yeah, then that I actually got the feeling, so I'll be helping solve real world problems. So that got me hooked into it. But other than that, of course, like I may not have chosen the field, but what got me to continue in it for the next 15 years was the incredible variety that the cyber sector offers. So it's not just defending or attacking. There are so many various options, the growth opportunities, And of course, the puzzles. I mean, it never ends and it never gets boring. So all of these adds up to a very exciting career, and that's what got me going.
Right. So Mary, before I move on to talking to Ranjika, is it correct for me to say that you're one of the first ladies to don the CISO hat for a bank in Sri Lanka?
I honestly cannot confirm 100%, but maybe you're right. Because I mean, in the local sector, the CISO role is coming up like recently with the regulator kind of pushing for new directives. So maybe I'm one of the earliest to get that opportunity.
Brilliant. Yeah. Ranjika, long career, right? You worked with some of the global brands, and today, what interests me is that you're heading the CISO function for one of the critical sectors, the power generation. How does it feel for you, or what did it take you to get up to that position as a CISO?
Many things, and just similar to Scenario's story, when I started out too, cybersecurity wasn't a big topic or a big focus for a lot of organizations. Really kind of saw that evolve over the last couple of years, and for me, it was just evolving along with how cybersecurity evolved over that time period. So starting out, it wasn't a hot topic, but it really kind of interested me, though I didn't, but just being exposed to it and seeing a CISO in action in the first company I joined, I was like, okay, that's something I think I really like to do. And I started just studying about it, learning about it, and then got my certifications. But it was really that exposure to cybersecurity and also just understanding what does it take to be a CISO, because that was my career aspiration. And then just moving from industry to industry it's interesting because I think every company has the same problems to solve, but we solve it in different ways because the cultures in organizations are different, objectives are different. With Ontario Power Generation, what's interesting is, again, I started, it's information security, that was my focus area. Right now, my accountabilities have expanded to industrial control systems. So, again, you don't have to know all about it. Just stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone and try new things because you can always learn. And we're all building very transferable skills, right? Regardless of industry. Once you know your technical, you gain your technical knowledge and you build your leadership skills, really then learning a new industry, learning new requirements, it just comes with the job. So it's really been interesting being able to transition from different roles and seeing how every organization addresses cybersecurity. And to kind of what everyone else said, Sharon and Sonari, cybersecurity, it's so different. It keeps you interested. And I think right now it's amazing. It's an amazing time to be in this profession because it's got everybody's attention, senior leadership in organizations. I know, some of the challenges that you showed up front in that video, it was talking about lack of management support and awareness. And but I think there is a heightened awareness in leadership, which is really important for a success of a CISO. But it also, and that means we've got a seat at the table. But what we need to do now is to keep that seat, right? So now that you've been invited to talk about cybersecurity, is how do you keep that seat so that you continue to build your credibility and trust? So definitely been an interesting journey and a very exciting one.
Absolutely. So when you start talking about PLCs and control systems, it's not mainstream tech, right? It's specialized, unique, and sometimes you require that amount of effort to learn, how it works or how it is being controlled. Right? So coming on to Neha. Neha, I mean, I see that you've been a top achiever in Singapore, right? In your career, you have achieved a lot. But one award which strikes me the most is the Global Achievement Award, which you received from the ISC Squared. Right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sujit, and thanks everyone on this panel and attendees. Very fortunate to be here today, and that's pretty much. I mean, you're very. Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. I'm very happy to have and very honored and fortunate to have received that award. In fact, I received two from IC Square Global Achievement, one for diversity and one for the mid-career. So pretty much not something that I had, planned for or expected ever, but just been working my way through through the career and the challenges that I've overcome and so on, just for being focused on what I'm meant to be doing at my work and in the community has been always my focus. Those are good to have things, awards and achievements and recognitions. They are good for motivation and keeping us encouraged that we are on the right track, right path, and just I think it's a good source of motivation.
Right. So we kind of heard from all of you, what motivated you to get to where you are. But I'm also going to start talking about some of the challenges, right? Now, typically, right? I mean, my mom, she was a teacher, right? My wife, she's a teacher. So typically, people would say either the ladies, take up a teaching profession or a medical profession or be an accountant. These are things what we typically, hear and see people in terms of those roles, right? But being a CISO or a security leader or a governance leader is something which people don't even give so much of thought to, right? Because people think that it just got to do a lot to do with technology or technology, tech jargons per se, right? So, and also, traditionally, I think we all come from a region where we value the family values a lot. And then that also means the in-laws and everyone would expect that you spend equal amount of time to take care of the family and things like that, right? So how do you see, right? I mean, this is an open question for all of you, right? So I'm going to hear from all of you, right? I'm not sure what your responses are going to be, but I would like to hear from you. How did you manage the family expectations, your friends, your peers at work, and still keep going? Who wants to go first? Should we say, Neha, do you want to start off?
So yeah, it's always a challenge. I guess it's for all of us, whether men or women, maybe a bit more for women being housemakers and, having kind of more responsibilities or having the habit of taking more responsibilities. But yes, it is always a kind of work-life integration that we have been moving towards earlier as we evolve. I think the only thing that keeps me going is my passion for the profession, my inquisitiveness. That's kind of that drives me to learn everything new that comes across that comes in the technology arena, whether it's blockchain or something new that comes up. I want to learn more about it, and then if you are really passionate, it is maybe it is possible to find time for it. So I think. Maybe I'll hear from others how I'm still trying to balance out, but it's always, the prioritization of the task that we have at hand. And it takes a bit of planning, but it works out once there is support from employer as well as from the family. So everything works in hand. So, yeah.
Ranjika, I mean, as you joined the call, you said you just left your kids at school and, just joined the session. How do you manage?
I do think that balance is a misnomer, right? Because I think when we say work-life balance, we tend to think that we can have it all. The reality is that there are trade-offs, right? Like Neha said, you have to prioritize. Sometimes you're prioritizing family. Sometimes you have to prioritize work. So it is that integration. But what's really important at least it has been important for me, is really the support of my husband, right? He's been very supportive of me having my career. And also that flexibility that employers provided me, especially when my kids were younger. A sick child at home, sometimes even a sick parent. It's not just children. It's when I had leaders who were very understanding and accommodating, because I still got the work done, right? Whether it's you work in the evening after you pick up your kids, I still got the work done. But just that understanding and that support, I think, is really important. But to think that you can have it all and equally prioritize everything, I don't think anyone should strive for that, because I think it's an unrealistic expectation. It's okay to be overwhelmed. I think it's okay, and expect that's fine. But there is maybe build a support system around you to help with that, and it is prioritization and planning.
Sure thing, right? It's okay to be overwhelmed, right? I mean, I can relate to Sunari, and sometimes I message her, she'd call me back, maybe tomorrow, maybe a week later, and then say, Sujit, I was like overwhelmed, right? How do you manage, Sunari? Work, traffic?
Yeah. So I think, like everybody said, it's like, I don't think there is any magic formula that really works okay, and I think it's all about coming up with a routine that works for you. Like, while some kind of advocate they must strictly segregate their work from their personal life, I don't think that's a working formula anymore in the cybersecurity field, especially when you're in leadership roles. So the bad guys, if there is an incident, they won't wait till following day morning just because you are home. So it is all about working a routine, kind of finding a routine that works for you. And having said that, it's not, I don't want to give the impression that every day is like a war room. There may be days where you need to pay some work, do some extra hours at work. I think, it's a given that almost all of us kind of do work extra hours, but there may be days that you need to do double extra, but that's not every day. So I think it is all of, I don't think, personally, I have not mastered it myself, because sometimes the balance seems to go off track. But I think, as Neha and Ranjika said, it's about finding a balance. Sometimes you cannot have the perfect balance, and sometimes it's not even only family, right? It's about time for your research. Maybe you want to do an exam, but finding time for that. Like you said, in our society, family, when it comes to females, you're expected to spend more time, but then it's also about your personal time. And whenever possible, I think, it's important to have personal time. And personally, I think if you've got no evening plans, it can be ridiculously easy to let your finishing time slip by. So I think it's important, at least maybe once or twice a week, to have some commitments so that you can, there will always be more work, but there won't always be more life. So you have to make a commitment so that you make that effort.
Yeah, the commitment. Sharon, your situation is different from the other three panelists we have, because you directly interface with customers, right? And sometimes you might be interfacing with customers in different time zones with different expectations. How do you deal with it?
It is quite a challenge. It can be sometimes, especially when you kind of just get into a new role and you, of course, want to do really well and you want to put in a 200% of effort into there. And that's all right as well. Anytime you go into something new, you naturally do have the initial learning curve, and you would want to kind of ramp up ASAP so that you can get to a better place where you have a better handle of things. But I think exactly like what Sunari mentioned, it's about being intentional with your time. And it's something that I think I've only really started to grasp what it truly means, maybe in the past few months or so, moving over to the US. And now I help to onboard all of our internal Microsoft SOC teams, the people who are monitoring our Azure infrastructure, our M365 infrastructure. And when things like Log4j happen, it's unfortunate. You have to put everything down. It was kind of right before Christmas, but things happen and you have to be able to adapt to things. But it's also being very intentional with your time. I think it's very easy for us to get swept away with the current of, meetings come in and the first thing you want to do is accept or repropose a time that fits, and you squeeze it right between two other meetings and things like that. But sometimes you have to take that pause and say, am I really needed in here, or is this just an FYI where I'm going to be, sitting in there, and it's time that's being taken away from you being productive elsewhere. It could be time you could have spent learning about something else, doing something else, putting up a new proposal, etc. So you have to be more aware also about, is this the best bang for my buck out of my time? Because it is a value, it is your resource. And I would say, well, you should fiercely protect your time, whether at work and personally as well. It's also about being adaptable, being flexible, understanding that not just for cyber, but any job, there's going to be times where you have to be able to let that go for a bit and then know that it's for the greater good as well.
A few sentences you spoke about, right? Being conscious and having the ability to say no where you have to say no, and don't get swept with the flood of things, right? So I think that's very, very important. Now, again, another common question for all of you, right? Have you ever come to a situation and felt, okay, enough is enough?
I want to say 10 times a day, but true and not true. I think that there will definitely be moments, and there's a lot of internal struggle that sometimes happens as well, when you also wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I, misunderstanding the issue? Am I really solving it, etc.? But I think there are times when you need to know internally, this is your kind of benchmark or your marker to say, yes, I need to stick by my principles and by my interpretation, have faith in what you made the call in. And also it's good to kind of use your colleagues as a sounding board, like, hey, what do you think of this? Are we going down the right track? It can get frustrating. I mean, it's with any job, there's going to be its challenges, but I think just keeping your eye on the goal, knowing why you made this career switch, knowing why you moved into this role. I started out in cyber as business development, and then I moved to strategy, which was all kind of in the same realm. And then suddenly when I got the opportunity to move into pre-sales, everybody around me was like, are you sure you want to move into something so technical? And before this, you were like basically not as technical. It was a big leap of faith, and of course, the initial part's going to be tough. But you're there because you want to challenge yourself, because you think you can do even more with those skills, that you put that on a big printout on the side of your wall, like, I did this because, and just use it as that reminder.
So I did this because, right? So I'm sure there'll be so many reasons, because you would definitely want to reflect and say, okay, I did this because I wanted to do this, right? So I want to hear from you, Neha. Do you come across, that's it?
Not very often, I would say. I kind of believe a lot in collaboration, delegation of things that can be, shared responsibility and so on. So I also, one thing that relates to the previous question of the work-life integration is self-care. So a lot, it's a lot more important than we think. To at least find some time for our own selves, to have the time to think, to clear our mind, to meditate, or do whatever that soothes you down, or keep your stress and balance in check. So I think that really helps me. I do spend some time on this aspect, and that really gives me a lot more time and a lot more patience, and kind of, it helps me adapt to different situations very quickly. So because I don't feel stressed enough as much, that would lead to that situation of enough is enough. But yes, there are obviously different people that we work with always, and different situations that we come across at all the times. So we have to just find out what works best, look at the positive side of people, of things, of situations, and try to find out a kind of, something positive around the situation. So that might, that really helps, because and also being a bit kind of understanding of the situation that people might be going through, that someone had a bad day maybe, and that's the reason they did not finish the work that they had to, or something on those lines. So always having that thought in mind as well, putting ourselves in the other people's shoes, and being a bit more relaxed about not really being on the other side of the wall, I should say.
So I just want to send out a message to all those participants out there. I think there's a survey which is being introduced into your chat. So please take a moment to fill in the survey. If you do have any questions for these ladies, please send those questions in so that I could ask them on your behalf. Right? Ranjika, I'm just coming to you. Right? Technology. Right, like the pandemic, right? I mean, there are different variants. Right? Sharon did mention briefly about Log4j, and we keep hearing different types of threats, different types of attacks, different technologies, and then you tend to hear these very glossy marketing terms like zero trust and NIST cybersecurity framework. How do you keep yourself abreast without getting intimidated by these things? What would you tell those people out there to go about it?
A lot of reading, I have to say. I think you do have to stay abreast of all the new developments. It's about where I spend my time, right? So I don't spend my time on the day-to-day. I leave my team to take care of that. So it's really delegating what I can. And then where should I be focusing my time? And it is staying abreast of all the new developments, but I also rely on my team to do that. I have an architecture team, and that's one of their mandates, is stay abreast of all the progressive solutions. It's participating in these type of webinars and really staying connected with my network. Again, what are other industries doing? What are my peers doing? It's really kind of understanding what's being adopted. And also, what's important again to the business, right? You can have a lot of new technologies and solutions, but at the end of the day, we're here to deliver on the business objectives. So what's a real threat to my company, my industry? What are their future plans? And if they're innovating, if they're introducing, IoT, if that's on the roadmap, okay, what do I need to be thinking about now to allow for that to happen? So I'm going to say it's a combination of a few things, but I think it is important to know what the latest and the greatest are and to stay abreast of it. But it's, again, just prioritizing my time and what I need to focus on. So I don't, I'm not going to try to do everything. It's really at my level, what should I be doing, and prioritizing it that way.
So the essence is being able to prioritize and be very clear in terms of what you would do yourself and what you would actually delegate it to your team.
And you delegate. That's right. You have to rely on your team.
Absolutely. Sunari, I mean, we have a emerging landscape in Sri Lanka, especially from a regulatory perspective, right? And also there are things which we probably are looking at what globally the regulated organizations, especially the banks, do. Right? So what do you actually do? I mean, in situations where you really need to find answers for questions? How do you manage that?
I think, like the other panelists mentioned, cybersecurity is always changing. I mean, there would always be new threat landscape, new technologies, or new frameworks, given that you have to be someone who would be willing to go for a lifetime of learning, because you constantly got to keep yourself updated. It's not like I got my professional qualification or I got my degree last year, so I'm all good now. So you have to keep on updating yourself, and that too at a very rapid pace. But of course, the good thing now is, I mean, there are so many resources out there, right? I mean, from online training programs to YouTube videos, Ask the Expert events, or even panel discussions like what we are having right now. I mean, you have so many resources at your fingertips, and the only limit is your willingness to learn. So as long as you are willing to learn, there are so many good resources. And I personally use some blogs to keep updated. There are very good resources. So I think it is very, very important that you find out some good resources and keep on following them. And of course, especially when it comes to my industry, like the financial sector, there are certain forums, the CIO forum, the CRO forum in the country. So in those, you actually get to engage with your peers and see what they are going to, how they are going to address certain issues, because most of the issues we have in the sector are quite common. So, and this is not an area in which we are going to compete with. I mean, even if you take the banking sector, this is not an area we are going to compete with each other. So it helps everyone if we collaborate. So collaborating with your peers as much as possible also helps. So basically, just be intellectually curious and keep an open mind to learn anything out there and see how it can work for you.
Sorry, thank you for that input. Sharon, very quickly, how important is it to have a mentor? Is a mentor a requirement, or you can just manage on your own?
I wouldn't say it's a requirement per se, but it's definitely a very, very, very good to have. You learn a lot when you talk to people about their experiences. You learn through them, right? And in that sense, you can shorten the amount of time it would have taken for you to experience that yourself, and you go through the same rough starts that they had. Right? Instead, if you just leverage on those experiences, you leverage on their insights. And typically, I would try and get mentors in different places. So I would have a mentor in cyber, someone who does cyber acquisitions, because that's another area I'm keen in. I would have someone who's completely out of cyber as well, just to give me more context on, you know, cyber is an overlay. We don't exist as a silo. I want to know more about networking. I want to know more about, like Neha mentioned, blockchain, things like that. So it's good to kind of keep those connections going. And mentors, you know, it's always bi-directional as well. It's a relationship where you learn from them, and likewise, you are spreading knowledge over there. It's generating that awareness of cyber. And I think, like it or not, all of us are evangelists in one way or another. And we do need to do our part to kind of let everyone be more aware of what's going on in cyber. Cyber is not just hiding in a room, like you mentioned, and coding away. Everyone kind of thinks that that's a big part of the job, but no, really, there's just so many opportunities in cyber, and we need resources, and we need to interest more people to get into cyber as well. And like, you know, kind of, I really resonated with what Garion mentioned at the start, where a lot of people don't even know about these opportunities, especially youth, especially kids. I think it's very important for us as well to serve as mentors. And I see a lot of people being reluctant to take that step because they're a bit worried about, am I in the right place to mentor someone? And I would say, yes, it is, you know, regardless of where you are in your career, what you're doing, your advice, your point of view is valuable to someone out there. And there are so many people, youth, especially women, etc., who have all these questions in their minds that, you know, someone needs to help to address. And panels like this, of course, help. But, you know, we can each do our part to also spread that word.
Right, Sharon. So mentors are important. But I have a question for you, Ranjika. Would people tend to think that if you go and ask for help, that it would be seen as a weakness?
Absolutely not, because I really think that asking for help means you're deliberate about your career, right? Like, I think asking for help, I really don't think it's a weakness, because it shows self-awareness that there's things that you want to be aware of, you want to learn. So it really kind of shows that you're thinking about your future and what skills you want to build. I always have time for people like that to mentor if they ask for help. And it does show that self-awareness, and I would always support that. I think the weakness is when people don't ask for help, or, you know, they assume that they've got it, they've got everything, and then there's that, why am I not getting this position, or why am I not getting this promotion, because I think I'm good, but not seeking that advice or that feedback, right? Like, it's asking for that feedback as well. how am I doing? Like, what should I be improving on? What are some of the areas skills I should be building on? I think asking those questions shows that you're investing in yourself and you're showing a lot of self-awareness.
Brilliant. Again, it comes to self-awareness, right? So that you have the courage to put your hands up and say, hey guys, I need help, I need guidance here, right? Sunari, coming to you, where would you go if you were to actually look for information or material other than reaching out to your mentors?
Okay, so Sujit, as we discussed earlier, I think in these times, there are so many resources out there. I mean, compared to the time when I started my career, right now, there are so many online training programs, online resources, good websites, like Ask the Expert events, as I mentioned earlier. There are just so many good places. And of course, there's I think being a member of a professional body, like a globally accepted body, like be it ISACA, be it IC Squared, I think those have also vastly helped me in my career, especially for the networking opportunities. I think, it's because of those networking opportunities, I think we come to be part of panels like this, where we can meet more people who are in the same sector. And it's important. I think networking is very, very important. And also when you're in one of those professional bodies, then you can also go for some professional qualifications, so that it helps you validate your knowledge, and it also helps you in furthering your career growth process. Because sometimes you might have a lot of practical knowledge, experience, but sometimes a promotion or a career growth requires an actual qualification that validates. So these type of professional qualifications also helps you, because these cover a lot of important resources and can give you a lot of light, especially in terms of frameworks, because new technologies, things like that. So, also, I think since we are talking about women in InfoSec, especially, I think there are good global initiatives. If you're interested to get into cyber, if you want to know what are the, opportunities out there, what kind of careers that you can look forward to, I think there are so many good initiatives like the ISACA, the IEC Squared, Women in Cyber, or ISACA She Leads Tech, so many other global initiatives like that of SANS. So I think checking out any network group that has a focus on women in tech or women in cybersecurity in particular, even these can give you a lot of inputs into different options available for you in terms of cybersecurity, and also about various technologies.
Brilliant. Yeah, I want to quickly bring you in, right? You represent ISC Squared Singapore chapter and all of us. And Garian, since you're on screen, you should help Neha to cover the ground, right? There's a lot we at ISC Squared globally are doing in terms of education and scholarships. So Neha, I would like you to take the lead and talk about what are those things available, especially for students and ladies.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question and great timing of this webinar as we speak. And before I go to the global scholarships that ISC Square has been accepting applications for, I would also briefly mention about, the chapter, as Sunari mentioned, the kind of involvement and kind of value that being part of a community like ISC Square local chapter brings. We had like more than 25 events focused on technical and different aspects of technology and cybersecurity in the last 1 year, and kind of touched base on all types of topics. So members can definitely benefit from that. On the ISC Square Global Scholarships, ISC Square is actually awarding, its timeline for accepting application is actually 28th of Feb for the Women's Cybersecurity Scholarships, and for graduate, it is due March first week, I think. So it's a great time we are in. I did not have, and as most of us, discussed just now, that we come from a time when there were very, very fewer opportunities as we see today comparatively. So I would definitely encourage women and graduate, undergraduate security in students, or students who are interested in taking a career in cybersecurity, to look through these. IC Square will award more than $100,000 in scholarship in 2022, and there would be around 10 women's and 20 scholarship for both undergraduate and graduate students. And in addition to that, cybersecurity, so IC Square has yesterday just published a preliminary exam outline as well for entry-level cybersecurity certification pilot program that they're building. So definitely encourage you all, or whoever is interested, to take a look at that and explore that option as well, because I have personally gained a lot from doing cybersecurity certifications. But till now, we used to have, IC Square used to have a mandatory criteria of 5 years or more experience and so on. But looking at the demand and the requirement that the cybersecurity industry needs, and the workforce gap that we are nearly at 3 million professionals that are required, IC Square has kind of been pushing through all these initiatives for the entry-level streams, and launching entry-level certification and a cybersecurity course as well. So definitely much encouraged. Garen, would you like to add something on this? You're on mute, Garen.
I was saying you covered all the materials that I'm going to say. So, but I just want to mention that yes, the IC Square definitely has a lot of programs for women, especially the scholarship. I personally have been a reviewer for a lot of the categories for a number of years, and I see a lot of good candidates from those applicants. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's good. It's good that IC Square is supporting these ladies who has financial need to further their education, and in cybersecurity especially.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And I think all of us have volunteered to be reviewers, and we've contributed to make this profession and the need to promote diversity, inclusion, and equality. And I think that that's something IC Squared is very seriously advocating and promoting. That's a very important thing. And one of the things which I've also noticed is that we need to encourage more people from this region to look at these scholarships. The scholarships are open right now, and some of them are closing on the 15th of February, and some of them are closing at the end of February. So please have a look at the IC Squared website. If you do need any help, clarification, those of you who are listening in for this webinar, if you need any help, reach out to any one of us, and we'll be more than happy to guide you, not just with the scholarship, clarifying the questions with respect to the scholarships. We'll also be able to help you to clarify with respect to the certification career path you want to actually look at. And apart from that, and I think there was one question which asked, like, where do I find mentors, right? Reach out to us, right? I mean, reach out to us. If you are in a city where there is an IC Squared chapter, please reach out to that chapter members or the chapter leadership, and they'll be more than happy to, help you and guide you. If you're not sure as to who you should reach out to any one of us who are in this forum, and we'll be able to guide you to the right people in the right city, the right chapter, right? So with that note, I quickly want to go back and talk to Sharon about skills again, right? One is in terms of the best practice, the knowledge. The other one is the nuts and bolts, the technical skills. Is it important? If it is important, how do we go about cultivating that technical expertise, right? Because you're a hardcore techie, Sharon, right? I mean, that's the way I see it, right? Where you can, play around with code and, things like that. So what would your advice be to those young people and women who are out there looking at cyber as an option? what is that encouraging word you can give them? Sharon?
Thank you. So I would say, yes, technical skills are important. They're not everything, but it is important. And, you know, the spectrum of technicality or being technical is pretty wide. You don't have to be someone who goes all the way down into source code. You could be someone who understands architecture. And if you like piecing different solutions together, architecture could be the way to go. So I think first thing is understanding where you want to be, which part of that technical spectrum really resonates with you. And then I think it's breaking down the problem into smaller consumable steps. So I think very often, you know, we see this giant mountain of like, oh my goodness, I need to learn like all the different layers of the OSI, and I need to know everything from networking to data and packets and everything. No, you don't. So just take a step back, take a breath, and then really break it down into something smaller. Let's start with one module. Let's spend half an hour just understanding even an overview of what something is, how data gets sent to, how an email gets sent to from one mailbox to another, things like that. So once you break it down, I think the problem becomes less daunting. It becomes less overwhelming for you. If at any point in time you need to talk to someone, a senior, a peer, whoever, just to get advice on, hey, there's this technical question that I'm not particularly certain about this scenario, what does it mean? There are more than enough people out there who are willing to sit down with you and break it down for you. And then I would say look for resources, like Sunari mentioned earlier. Everything is out there. Honestly, I think there might be too much out there. It feels like I'm spoiled for choice sometimes. So like also, I think Ranjika mentioned, find something that you know is good quality content, someone who speaks the lingo, who pitches it at the right level for you, and then leverage them for their resources, their content. I would say there's so many things out there. There are different vendors who produce different certifications. A lot of that content is also free and available for you. Some of it is going to be very vendor specific, like how do you deploy this firewall? How do you set it up? Things like that. But they will kind of usually go through the 101 and the basics of networking, of database, etc. And it's good to leverage that content at least to give you that good start, that context, and then you slowly build from there. Build a learning plan. I would say it's like the number one thing to do so you don't overwhelm yourself.
Thank you, Sharon. I mean, Ranjika, very quickly, very briefly, I think we're almost approaching the close. How important is to have good soft skills?
I think it's equally important as having technical skills, because cybersecurity doesn't work in a vacuum, right? We work within a bigger organization, whether it's working with our IT counterparts and our other business stakeholders. So soft skills in terms of even within cybersecurity, a lot of what we need to do, it might not be always popular. So being assertive and standing by what you want to get done, but at the same time showing empathy and being able to work with those stakeholders. So we're not mandating things, but influencing, right? So those are the soft skills. I think that's really important. Influencing. The other is, I'm going to say, really communication, because cybersecurity, I think we have our own language, we have our jargon, and it's how do we communicate cybersecurity to people who don't understand it? Because in order to influence and get buy-in, it's really important that we can communicate what we need to do, why we need to do what we're recommending to all levels of the organization, right? It's getting user buy-in, but it's also getting executive buy-in. It's giving your board confidence that you've got things under control. Or even when you need funding or resources, you have to communicate why you need it, right? You have to make a case for it. So I would say just kind of points. I would say being assertive, communication, being able to resolve conflicts, and really influencing, being able to influence people.
Sure. Thank you. And there is one question from a friend of mine, Daman Sood. He is actually asking, when the world actually moved to work from home, and a lot of things were happening at home. There's a question out there, right? And he's been doing some research and he feels otherwise, right? There are more challenges in working from home than the challenges it resolves. I guess women are looking forward to go back to office more than men, based on personal interaction with a woman in HR. Anyone wants to comment? Any of the ladies who want to comment very briefly?
I can quickly comment on that. I don't think it's either or, right? I think, working from home does have its own challenges, whether it's if you have young kids at home, if you don't have a proper space to work and focus. But at the same time, working from home is convenient because you're at home, you don't have the travel time, etc. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a balance. Just having that option to work from home when you can, I think it's a huge benefit for women. There are times I like to go to the office too. I like the relationship building. I like being, actually attending meetings in person. I do miss the social aspect of it. And I think that is the thing, right? It's 100% working from home might not be palatable for everybody. But having that option, I think, is really beneficial for what we talked about earlier in terms of that work-life integration.
Thank you, Ranjika. Gary, and I'm just going to briefly bring you in, right, before I hand over the session to Samani and Suhashini. When we talk about cybersecurity, we all think confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? But I think, you being in Singapore, you all look at emerging technologies, and you're also looking at people coming from other domains, right? Maybe a mathematician to be in the cybersecurity team. You probably bring in a statistician to be in the cybersecurity. I mean, can you just probably give some hints, what kind of opportunities we could probably propose for such people who could actually come in and talk cyber, maybe even a person who specializes on geography?
Well, maybe for those, like for the example that you gave, the mathematician. So I am assuming the mathematicians is very good at arithmetics, analytics, able to analyze, use very complex, or not even able to develop very complex formula to solve problems, solve even deeper problems. So this is a very good trait if you apply it to cybersecurity. When you see very complex attack behaviors and you need to analyze what's happening and come with even more complex solution to counteract those attacks, then that trait probably comes in very useful in that scenario. And for somebody who is very specialized in geography, perhaps that person can go into more theoretical governance aspects, I suppose. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. And I think there's a world of opportunities out there, right? You don't need to be tech to be in cyber, right? You can be in non-tech and still contribute to cybersecurity. So that's what we're all trying to say. So before we wrap up, I just want all of you, right, starting from Sharon to Ranjika, Sunari, and to Neha, in that order, one closing thought very quickly for all those people who are listening in there, why they should actually consider cybersecurity as their next career option.
Sounds like an elevator pitch. So I'll try. For cyber, definitely, if you're interested in something that's dynamic, that's going to be diverse, like Sujit mentioned, the first thing that struck me about cyber was when I went to my very first cybersecurity conference, and you talk to people and you ask them, where did you come from? How did you land in cyber? I think about 90% of people were saying, I didn't know what cyber was. It was just a pivot point within my career. I used to be doing database, I used to be in networking, etc. And then one day my manager came to me and said, do you want to do security on the side? And that's kind of how a lot of people pivot in. So it's an industry that has a lot of this character. I feel like everyone you meet brings a different perspective to it. And that's exactly how we thrive as the industry, because cyber is an overlay. And definitely, I would say, think about that if that's something that you're interested in. And if you are, don't stop yourself. I think sometimes our worst enemies, we look at the CV, or we look at the JD, the job description, and we think, oh, I don't have 5 years of experience in this, and etc. Then you don't have to have the 5 years. Be upfront about it. Say that you are really interested, you are passionate, you want to learn, and then figure out a learning plan together with the hiring manager. So don't shortchange yourself. Don't stop yourself from pursuing something that you really want to do.
Ranjika?
I think it's the best time to enter cybersecurity. I think, there's a huge demand for it. There's a lot of career opportunities, different career paths, and really options to do what you're interested in, whether it's technology, whether it's governance, whether it's risk management, architecture, cloud, right? Like there's so much variety within cybersecurity that you can always find something that you're interested in. But there is a significant demand for it, and we need people coming into cybersecurity. We need a variety of skill sets. So definitely, I encourage anyone who's interested to explore this. And if you're kind of on the cusp of trying to figure out, is this right for you? Again, talk to people who are already in it. There are challenges, definitely, within the profession, but that's again with every profession. But just talk to people, understand what their day-to-day looks like, right? Again, what are the challenges? What are not? What makes them passionate about cybersecurity? Maybe it is just understanding and building a network and really getting to know what's out there. Like I said, there's so many career paths. And if you even go on LinkedIn and look at the different variety of jobs, you'll see that no two jobs are the same in cybersecurity. You might see a title of senior cybersecurity analyst or cloud architect or identity and access management architect. But if you look at the role descriptions, all quite different depending on the company. So definitely, I'm very passionate about cybersecurity. I think a lot of, if you talk to people in cybersecurity, they're very passionate about it because it offers a lot. There's a lot of, it actually is quite fulfilling because you feel that you've achieved something. You're actually helping your company protect against threats, right? You actually, it's very fulfilling to know that you are a hero, as Neha has said. We don't see it that way, but you are kind of the everyday people with a cape on trying to protect your company. So even if it's beyond career, it's why am I doing this? I think it's just the way we're helping companies, it's quite resonating for a lot of people. If you look at, beyond the technology and the job function itself. I would say get as much information as you can about it. Talk to people who are in it.
Sonari?
Yes, I think I have to agree with the other two ladies. And I think being a woman in cybersecurity is cooler than ever right now. And cybersecurity industry, I would say, is not all tech bros in hoodies like some of this it is perceived to be. It is an incredibly diverse space where there are so many different opportunities, like the previous ladies mentioned. It is not only about techie. I mean, it ranges from the technical to the business. So like you could be an ethical hacker, you could be into security coding, threat intel, then you can go into risk governance, compliance. So the opportunities are endless. And I think we also have a serious numbers issue when it comes to cybersecurity. So whether it is male or female, I think we need to get all the resources we need to get, because the bad guys are not going to go anywhere. So to that extent, I think though it's not a positive thing to have the bad guys, but I think there's job security as well, because the threat landscape is only going to increase. So there are so many opportunities. And as Ranjika mentioned, so you will be helping companies keep away the bad guys. So it is a very fascinating and a rewarding industry. So as I said, it's a very diverse space. There is more than enough space for you to find your passion in that space. So seek out what your passion is, be open-minded, be willing to learn. There will be challenges, but I think you should treat every challenge as an opportunity to learn something. So find your passion and go for it.
Neha.
Yes, a lot has been covered and very nice, really great points. So cybersecurity, I would say, is such a diverse field, and there's something for everyone to contribute to. And it's become so important today. We talk about national security in terms of, and nations are discussing cybersecurity as their agenda, in their agenda. So it's evolving. There are continuous changes and challenges. We've seen the digital transformation coming along with the pandemic very soon, and the tech innovations are continuing, and they would continue in the next decade or two as well. every technology, as in every technology that comes in, that brings along some digital risk. We talk about cloud security, container security. We associate the word security with everything, whether it's blockchain, whether it's IoTs that we're using it, in terms of day-to-day home appliances. So I would say it's an amazing industry to be in. There's a huge requirement and demand for the talent. Transitioning is not as difficult as people might perceive it to be, and you do not really need a lot of cybersecurity specific certifications or degrees to get in. Try with small things and small learnings that would evolve eventually, bring your skill set to a level that you can contribute to the industry. It's not really important to be perfect. You need to be perfect in your uniqueness. And yeah, it's the most important, interesting, and impactful work that you'll ever do. That's pretty much what I want to add. Thanks.
Thank you, Neha. It's been cool, right? I mean, it's been cool, and it's been my absolute pleasure talking to all of you, right? So I just don't want to stand in between you and your dinner. I want to say a big thank you for sharing your views and your time with us. And I hope those of you who have joined us for this session found it useful, beneficial. And for me personally, I found it very motivating and very encouraging, right? And very especially, I think you guys handle more pressure than anyone else, right? Home, work, life, whatever, right? So there's so many things you juggle, and you guys do it well. And I would like to want to give a round of applause to all of you, all the lovely ladies on screen, and those people who are not on screen as well, right? So with that, I just want to quickly hand the session over to Samani and Suhashini to say the word of thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Sajid. That was an inspiring session indeed. On behalf of the ISS Colombo Chapter Women in Cybersecurity Committee, we would like to offer our heartfelt thanks to the marvelous panelists, Neha Malhotra, Ranjika Manamperi, Sunari Dandenia, and Sharon Kaur for sharing their invaluable experiences and insights with us, and Sujit Christie, the president of ISS Colombo Chapter, for moderating the panel. This webinar was presented to you as a joint venture of ISS Colombo Chapter and ISS Singapore Chapter. Garian Kong, the president of ISS Singapore Chapter, thank you very much for joining us today and for your wonderful speech. Next, we would like to thank Articulate for their collaboration to make this a successful event. Not to forget the board members of ISS Colombo and Singapore chapters for their support, supporting partner ISACA Sri Lanka Chapter, National Strategic Partners ICTA and Sri Lanka CERT, and ISS Colombo Chapter Women in Cybersecurity team for working tirelessly to make this event a success. So Hashini, over to you.
Thank you, Sumani. Last but not least, to all the participants, thank you very much for spending morning, afternoon, or evening with us today. You're all welcome to become members of the local ISS chapters. We have a survey link in the chat and would very much appreciate it if you could share your thoughts on today's discussion, and also let us know what topics interest you. Please look out for the next event organized by the ISS Colombo Chapter, Women in Cybersecurity, in March, targeting the International Women's Day. Finally, we are proud to announce that the ISS Colombo Chapter is the cybersecurity knowledge partner for the Economic Times Spectrum Sri Lanka. And we request you to register for this event, which will be on the 18th of February, 2022. Thank you very much once again. Have a good day. Good evening.